Hello and welcome. Could you please put a plus in the chat box if you can hear me? Okay, thank you. So today we've got a listening webinar about IELTS listening. And first of all, can I ask you, which country and city are you from? Could you please type in the chat box? It would be interesting for me to know which city and country you're from. Okay, or Indonesia, Philippines, Thailand, Mongolia, Iran, Pakistan, then Russia, Oman, Korea, Russia, Novosibirsk, Saratov, Volgograd, Kaluga. Yes, most of my students are usually from Russia. Ryazan, Mytishi, Ijevsk, Serpukhov, Yalta, Lipetsk, Yekaterinburg, Rostov-on-Don, Moscow, Arel. So, well, that's all over the world, and also people from Russia. So, welcome everyone. So today we'll talk about listening. Could you also type in the chat box, are you taking academic or general IELTS, and what's your target band score? You can also type, like, have you ever taken IELTS before, and what was the result? What were your impressions? Okay, I haven't taken IELTS yet. 6.5, 6. So a lot of people are targeting at 7, mostly academic, as I can see. So 7 is the most popular band score, and most people are taking academic. My husband took IELTS and scored a 6.5. But not bad, not bad. I'm afraid of taking IELTS. You shouldn't be afraid. If you prepare properly, then you probably shouldn't be prepared for. You shouldn't be afraid of taking it. Okay, so who is this webinar for? So it is for those who are planning to enter foreign universities. So that's for those who are taking academic IELTS mostly. Then it's for those who want to immigrate to Canada, Australia, or New Zealand, and you need IELTS General. So it's also for those who want to be promoted at work, and for those who want to boost their self-esteem. Okay, so in this webinar today, we're going to talk about how to develop and strengthen your listening skills. We'll also learn how to understand the test format and contents. We'll talk about how to learn and practice listening tips and strategies, and how to achieve your target band scores. Okay, so this is the plan of our webinar. So we're going to talk about the format, the strategies, and we're also going to practice. Okay, during the webinar, please try to be polite and also bring a hardworking attitude to the whole webinar. If you want to benefit from this webinar, then try to participate actively and be totally involved in it. Okay, so just before we start the actual webinar, a few words about me. My name is Yuri. I am an IELTS tutor, and I'm a graduate of St. Petersburg State University, that's in Russia. I majored in linguistics. I'm also a CELTA qualified English teacher. So CELTA is the most widely recognized English teaching qualification by Cambridge University. I also was a Cambridge speaking examiner in the past for 1 year. And I have 16 years experience teaching English, including last 10 years, I focused specifically on teaching for IELTS. So I've been teaching for IELTS all these 16 years, but I've been concentrating on IELTS for the last 10 years. Okay, so if you're interested, you can read students' reviews in my vk.com group or at an independent website, profi.ru, where every review is verified by the website administration. So you can trust those reviews and you can read what students think about my teaching style, teaching methods, and so on. All right. Also, I would like to know your opinion. So what is more important in order to pass IELTS? Do you think it is more important to have good level of English, or do you think it's more important to know the format of the exam? So if you want to pass IELTS, what's more important, to have good level of English or to know the format? Okay, so I see that opinions differ. Some people think that it's good to have good level of English, whereas others think that it's more important to know the format. So I would say that you need a combination of both. So definitely you need to improve your level of English. Some people might not like this, but that's true. If you want to score higher than your current level, you do need to work on your level of English. And then if you know the format, you can increase your score. You can maximize your score, so you will receive maximum possible score for your level. And if you do not know the format, you might lose points. For example, if you don't know that okay, um, yeah, we will talk about this a bit later. So if you don't know some aspects of the listening test, then you might just lose marks. Even if you understand everything, you might not expect something to happen, and then it will cause some problems, even if you have good level of English. But if you answer this question, I would say that both of these aspects are important. So you need to have good level of English, you need to work on improving your level, and you also need to familiarize yourself with the format. You need to build listening sub skills that are tested, and you also need to uh, develop your exam skills. We'll talk about them a bit later. Okay, so today we'll talk about listening, and tomorrow we're going to talk about reading. So, what would you say are the similarities of listening and reading? Right, so these are both receptive skills. So you listen or read and you receive information. So these are called receptive skills, as opposed to writing and speaking, which are called productive skills because you produce your language. Okay, now also let's do a short warm up and we'll see how well you know the IELTS listening test. All right, are you ready? Now, there will be a question. Please try to type your answers in the chat box. The first question is, how many questions are there in IELTS listening? Okay. Yes, there are 40 questions. So there are 40 questions in IELTS listening. Now, how long is the IELTS listening test? Some people think it's 40 minutes. Some people think it's 15 minutes. Some people, 30 plus minutes. That's a good strategy to answer this. Okay, so normally the IELTS listening tests lasts around 40 minutes. So the listening itself lasts 30 minutes, and then in the paper based version, you have 10 minutes to transfer your answers to the answer sheet. And in computer delivered IELTS, you have about 2 minutes to transfer your answers, but you don't really need to transfer them because they are already, you type them on the screen while you're listening. So there is nothing to transfer as a rule. Okay, so it's somewhere around 40 minutes, give or take. And the recording itself lasts 30, well, sometimes 21, 29, sometimes 31 minutes. Okay, now how many parts does the recording have in IELTS listening? Okay, so so some people write it's 4, some people write there are 3. The correct answer is 4. There are 4 parts, and before January 2020, they were called sections. Section 1, Section 2. But after the 1st of January 2020, they're called parts. So now if you go to IELTS, well, this year, then you will hear parts, not sections, just a minor difference. Okay, next one. That's an important thing. How many times will the recording be repeated? So the recording will be repeated once only, okay? And it means that you need to always pay attention to what you're listening for. And if you don't know the format of the exam, here is a salient example. So if you don't know that there will be only one listening, so it will be repeated only once, you might expect it to be repeated again, and you might be not very attentive. And that's why you might skip something. So it's very important to know the format as well, not only to improve the level of your language. Okay. And now one more question. What's the difference between IELTS Academic and IELTS General Listening modules? There is no difference. So listening test in IELTS is the same, both for general and academic IELTS. Okay, so can you write on the question paper during the listening test? Yes, you can. In paper-based version, you can write on the question booklet, and well, this is where you write. And after this, you transfer your answers on the answer sheet. And then during computer-delivered IELTS, you can write on the screen, or you also have a paper, a sheet of paper in front of you. So you can take some notes if it's more convenient for you to do it on paper. You can also do this. Okay, so test design. The IELTS listening test is designed to assess a wide range of listening skills, including how well you understand main ideas and specific factual information. So also how you recognize the opinions, attitudes, and purposes of speakers and follow the development of an argument. So these are some of the, some of the sub-skills, and this wording is quite general. Okay. As I've already mentioned, there are two different types of IELTS. It can be paper-based or it can be computer-delivered. So if it's computer-delivered, then you take listening, reading, and writing on a computer. If it's paper-based, then you take listening, reading, and writing on paper. Speaking is the same. It's a face-to-face speaking test with a certified IELTS examiner, and it is the same. The good thing about computer-delivered IELTS is that you receive your results within 5 to 7 days officially. However, in real life, sometimes it takes 2 to 3 days. If everything is fine with your exam, then you receive your results even earlier than that. But officially, it's 5 to 7 days. Whereas for paper-based IELTS, you receive your results after 13 days. Okay, so when you register, if you want to register for computer-delivered IELTS, you look for a computer icon, and if you want paper-based IELTS, you just look for a paper icon. Okay, and also computer-delivered is more convenient in a way that you can take it up to 5 days a week. Whereas paper-based IELTS, it depends on your test center, but maximum you can take it up to 48 days a year. So it's almost every Saturday if you have a big exam center in your city, and some Thursdays. But usually, even in big cities, you cannot take IELTS every Saturday. It can be maybe twice a month, but sometimes every Saturday. It depends on your exam center. Well, the length of the test is the same. So listening is 30 minutes plus some time to transfer your answers. Then reading is 60 minutes, writing is 60 minutes, and speaking is from 11 to 14 minutes. Okay, now in IELTS listening, each correct answer is awarded 1 mark, and scores out of 40 are converted to the IELTS 9-band scale. Scores are reported in whole and half bands. All right. So, here is a table how the number of correct answers. There are 40 questions, and the number of correct answers, how it is converted. So, for example, if you want a 7, then you need to have 30 to 31 correct answers. However, this chart is approximate because different IELTS reading texts and different IELTS listening texts are they can have different level of difficulty, and that's why sometimes this number can be slightly different. So this is just an approximate number of correct answers, but it can vary from test to test. So this is what we have in open access, and this is what we can just, if you do official IELTS Cambridge tests from official Cambridge books, then you can just see how many correct answers, and you can know approximately what your band score is going to be. Okay, so if you want a 9, you can only make maximum 1 mistake, and if you want an 8, you should give 35 or 36 correct answers. Okay, so what are you aiming for in your IELTS listening in particular? So what are your target band scores in IELTS listening? What mark would you, or what score would you like to get? Okay, so again, here the most popular band score is 7. I would say that listening is usually the easiest part, and the marks are often the highest. So if you need band 7 overall, so maybe you're likely to get band maybe 7.5 or 8 in listening, and somewhere in reading and writing, this score might be lower. Okay. So let's talk about the strategies that we can use in order to get higher band scores in IELTS. So this is what I call the CAP strategy. So there is a strategy called CAP. Let's try to guess. What do you think these letters stand for? So what do you think letter C stands for? So, okay, some people think concentrate, comprehension, concentration, concise, okay, confidence. Well, in fact, that's contextualize. Okay, we'll talk about it later, how to contextualize. Now, what do you think letter A stands for? Assured, attention, accuracy, answer. Well, actually, it means to anticipate. I will explain how to use this strategy a bit later. And finally, what do you think is what does letter P stand for? Practice, performance, prepare, predict. Okay, so the correct answer is predict. So that's contextualize, anticipate, and predict. Okay, so first, what we do, we contextualize the situation in which the speaking takes place, as it will help you to predict the kind of language you will hear. So you need to think about the following questions. How many speakers are there? Where is the speaking taking place? Is it a formal or an informal situation? And what is the topic? Okay, so would you like to practice how to contextualize? Okay, let's do that. So now please listen to the recording. It's going to be a very short recording, just 6 to 7 seconds, because these will only be instructions. So listen to the recording and answer the following questions. Where is the speaking taking place? How many speakers are there? And what is the topic? Okay.
You will hear a woman phoning a friend to get information about a job agency. First, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 5.
Okay, so that was it. I hope you managed to hear. So just in case, in real IELTS, you won't be able to listen to this again. So please write your answers in the chat box if you're ready. And if you're not, we'll listen again. Where is the speaking taking place? How many speakers are there? What is the topic?
Part 1. You will hear a woman phoning a friend to get information about a job agency. First, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 5.
Okay. So where is the speaking taking place? So on the phone, right? On the phone. How many speakers are there? There are 2 speakers. There is a woman phoning a friend. And what is the topic? What are they speaking about? They are talking about a job agency. Okay, so this is how we contextualize. So we hear the instructions and we know the context. Okay, then anticipate. So anticipate by listening to the spoken instructions and reading the questions to get the structure of the listening. So the questions are, what type of question is it? What is the instruction? How many questions are there? And where are the questions located? Okay, so these are the 4 questions. So also it's important to note where the questions are located. So please have a look at an example of computer delivered IELTS. If you're going to take computer delivered, some people, they start listening, but they don't realize where the questions are. Now look, question 1 is right here. Then question 2 is on the right, but very many candidates, they expect question 2 to be under question 1. But this is question 3. So they look at question 3, and as a result, they skip question 2. So it's very, well, it's really crucial to familiarize yourself with it before you start the actual IELTS listening test. Okay, so the questions 1, 2, 3, they go like this. All right, now, so here's a listening task from part 1. Please have a quick look at it. And so what we need is, what type of question is it? What is the instruction? How many questions are there? And where are the questions located? Okay, so what type of a question is it? Okay, that's note completion, right? That's note completion. Now, what is the instruction? The instruction is complete the notes below, write 1 word and or a number for each answer. So you need to complete the notes. These are the notes that you need to complete. And you need to write 1 word and or a number. So also in modern IELTS tests, over the last maybe 2 or 3 years, usually in the gap, you only need to write 1 word. In about 90% of tests, only 1 word. So 2 or 3 words, that's very rare. Usually, you just need to write 1 word, or here, 1 word and or a number. Okay, good. So these were the instructions. Now, how many questions are there? Okay, here we can see 5 questions. And where are the questions located? So right here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It might also be a good idea to circle these numbers, so that, especially if it's map completion, so it would be very nice to circle the numbers so you know in which order they go. Questions in IELTS listening always go in order. In listening, they always go in order. Okay. So, and then predict. Predict the kind of information you're listening for. Is it a number, time, a name, or a place? Is it a noun, an adjective, an adverb, or a verb? Is it descriptive, informative, or persuasive? What are the keywords to listen for? Okay, so this is what you need to do before you listen. Okay, so let's try to predict. So what kind of information can we expect in these gaps? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so in number 1, that's going to be a surname. And most likely the surname will be spelled for you. So you need to write every letter that you hear. So this surname will be spelled for you. Now, best to call her in the, so this is going to be, most likely, this is going to be a part of a day. So morning, afternoon, evening, or night. Well, most likely it's not going to be night, but something like this, okay? So then must have good, some kind of skills, right? So this is going to be most likely an adjective, or it can be a noun that has the function of an adjective, okay? So number 4, jobs are usually for at least one. Okay, so in number 4, you're likely to expect some kind of a length or a period, like I don't think the job will last for 1 minute, but maybe 1 day, 1 week, 1 month, 1 year, 1 semester, something like this. And finally, pay is usually something per hour, and you can see the pound sign. If you see this pound sign, you don't need to copy it into your answer sheet. You only need to write what is going to be here. So, and what is going to be a price? So it's going to be a number, and you can write this number as a number or as a word. Both of these answers are correct. Okay, so oops. So now let's practice.
You will hear a woman phoning a friend to get information about a job agency. First, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 5. Now listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 5.
Hello, William. This is Amber. You said to phone if I wanted to get more information about the job agency you mentioned. Is now a good time?
Hi, Amber. Yes, fine. So the agency I was talking about is called Bankside. They're based in Docklands. I can tell you the address now, 497 East Side.
OK, thanks. So is there anyone in particular I should speak to there?
The agent I always deal with is called Becky Jameson.
Let me write that down. Becky
Jameson. Jameson.
Do you have her direct line?
Yes, it's in my contacts somewhere. Right, here we are. 07866 510 333. I wouldn't call her until the afternoon if I were you. She's always really busy in the morning trying to fill last-minute vacancies. She's really helpful and friendly, so I'm sure it would be worth getting in touch with her for an informal chat.
It's mainly clerical and admin jobs they deal with, isn't it?
That's right. I know you're hoping to find a full-time job in the media eventually, but Becky mostly recruits temporary staff for the finance sector, which will look good on your CV and generally pays better too.
Yeah, I'm just a bit worried because I don't have much office experience.
I wouldn't worry. They'll probably start you as a receptionist or something like that. So what's important for that kind of job isn't so much having business skills or knowing lots of different computer systems, it's communication that really matters, so you'd be fine there. And you'll pick up office skills really quickly on the job. It's not that complicated.
Okay, good. So how long do people generally need temporary staff for? It would be great if I could get something lasting at least a month.
That shouldn't be too difficult. But you're more likely to be offered something for a week at first, which might get extended. It's unusual to be sent somewhere for just a day or two.
Right. I've heard the pay isn't too bad. Better than working in a shop or a restaurant.
Oh yes, definitely. The hourly rate is about £10, £11 if you're lucky.
That's pretty good. I was only expecting to get £8 or £9 an hour.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation,
You have some
time to look at questions 6 to 10.
Okay, so if you're ready, please write your answers in the chat box. Okay, I will play this again, and in the meantime, I will try to write the answers in the gaps so you can check. And you can also share your options in the chat box. Okay, let's listen again.
Part 1. You will hear a woman phoning a friend to get information about a job agency. First, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 5. Now listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 5.
Hello, William. This is Amber. You said to phone if I wanted to get more information about the job agency you mentioned. Is now a good time?
Hi, Amber. Yes, fine. So the agency I was talking about is called Bankside. They're based in Docklands. I can tell you the address now, 497 East Side.
OK, thanks. So is there anyone in particular I should speak to there?
The agent I always deal with is called Becky Jameson.
Let me write that down. Becky
Jameson. Jameson.
Do you have her direct line?
Yes, it's in my contacts somewhere. Right, here we are. 07866 510 333. I wouldn't call her until the afternoon if I were you. She's always really busy in the morning trying to fill last-minute vacancies. She's really helpful and friendly, so I'm sure it would be worth getting in touch with her for an informal chat.
It's mainly clerical and admin jobs they deal with, isn't it?
That's right. I know you're hoping to find a full-time job in the media eventually, but Becky mostly recruits temporary staff for the finance sector, which will look good on your CV and generally pays better too.
Yeah, I'm just a bit worried because I don't have much office experience.
I wouldn't worry. They'll probably start you as a receptionist or something like that. So what's important for that kind of job isn't so much having business skills or knowing lots of different computer systems, it's communication that really matters, so you'd be fine there. And you'll pick up office skills really quickly on the job. It's not that complicated.
OK, good. So how long do people generally need temporary staff for? It would be great if I could get something lasting at least a month.
That shouldn't be too difficult. But you're more likely to be offered something for a week at first, which might get extended. It's unusual to be sent somewhere for just a day or two.
Right. I've heard the pay isn't too bad. Better than working in a shop or a restaurant.
Oh yes, definitely. The hourly rate is about £10, 11 if you're lucky.
That's pretty good. I was only expecting to get £8 or £9 an hour.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 6 to 10.
Okay, 1 second. So here you can see the correct answers. So surname was spelled for you, and this is how you spell it. Now, best to call her in the afternoon, because in the morning she is busy. You can hear morning, but you're expected to write afternoon because this is the correct answer. Now, must have good communication skills. So you need to be good at communication. Some office skills were mentioned. So the girl said that she didn't have good office skills, but this is a distractor because it's not important for this position. Now, jobs are usually for at least 1 week. Again, there were some distractors because the girl said that she wanted to have something for 1 month, but this is not the answer because it's not what jobs are usually for. So another distractor was 1 or 2 days, but it was mentioned that this is unusual. So here the correct answer is week. And pay is usually £10 per hour. You can write 10 as a number or as a word. Okay, some other numbers were mentioned. So she mentioned she hoped to get £8 or £9, and the man also mentioned that sometimes the payment can be £11, but usually it is 10, and this is the correct answer. Okay, so here's an example of how this can be done. Okay. Right, now here's the tape script, but we basically described everything. So here's the surname, Jameson. I wouldn't call her until the afternoon, so the best time is afternoon. Communication skills, it's communication that really matters. Okay, something for a week, and £10. All right. Now, the IELTS listening test consists of 4 parts, and these 4 parts are different. So what's different? The different is the number of speakers, the context. Well, the length and number of items is always the same. So in part 1, it's going to be some general content, and 2 people will be talking. And usually during this conversation, they will spell names, they will give some numbers. There is some basic information that, well, anyone from pre-intermediate level and higher should be able to deal with. Okay, and so you need to concentrate here very well already, because it's a pity to lose marks in part 1, which is very simple. Okay, so there are 2 people talking. Maybe they need to complete a form, maybe they need to inquire some information, and it's a dialogue. Then part 2, it's also general. Yes, so it lasts from 5 to 8 minutes, and there are 10 questions. So usually from question 1 to 5, you listen, and then there is some more time, and you can look at the rest of part 1. Now, in part 2, there is 1 speaker. Sometimes there is somebody else who introduces the speaker, but actually the content is is said by 1 speaker, and it's general situation. It can be a tour guide who is talking about something, and you have to answer the questions on what he's saying. It also lasts 5 to 8 minutes, and there are 10 questions. Now, part 3, it's an academic situation, and there are from 2 to 4 people speaking. As a rule, there are 2 or more students who are discussing their project, or it can be a talk, can be a conversation between a student and a university tutor about research, a project, or something like this. So if there are 3 speakers, then maybe, for example, one woman and 2 men, then men's voices will be easy to distinguish them, to tell one voice from another. Right, it also lasts from 5 to 8 minutes, and there are 10 questions. And part 4, there is one speaker, and it's usually a lecture. It's usually an introduction to a lecture. So the context is academic. It also lasts from 5 to 8 minutes, and there are 10 questions. But the thing is, usually it's the most difficult part, and there is no gap between questions. So in sections 1, 2, and 3, you have some time after first 5 or 6 questions, or usually 5 questions. You have some time to look at the next 5 questions. But here, you don't have any separate time between these 10 questions. It's so they go almost non-stop. There is a very small pause in the middle of about 2 or 3 seconds, and you know that this is where the next type of question starts, for example, from 6 to 10. But that's it. You don't have any extra time here to look at the questions. So usually part 1 is the easiest, part 4 is the most difficult, so the level of difficulty here increases. All right. So if you want to score a 7, you need to get at least 9 correct answers in section 1, 8 correct answers in section, well, it's called part 2, 7 in part 3, and 6 in part 4. So when you're capable of doing it, you can go to the exam and get your 7 in listening. If you want an 8 in listening, then you need to get 10 correct answers in part 1, at least 9 correct answers in part 2, 8 correct answers in part 3, and 7 correct answers in part 4. Okay, so when you do this, it means you're ready for band 7 or band 8 respectively. Okay, so this is one more strategy for you to know when you're ready. Okay, so a few words about part 1. In part 1, you might be expected to hear names and surnames that are spelled for you, addresses that are spelled, email addresses, phone numbers, or zip codes. Okay, so if it's a zip code, you need to be prepared that it's what it looks like, because a British zip code is different from many countries. So some traps here are that if you don't know the alphabet perfectly, you might easily confuse letters because you don't have time for this. So if you confuse G and J, A and R, or in American English it's R, but if it's a British speaker, it's A and R. Some students confuse this. C and S, okay, so C and S, then E and I, H and 8, M and N, V, U, and W. So these are the letters that are often confused. Okay, pay special attention to them in your preparation. Right now, numbers, don't confuse 13 and 30, 14 and 40. So 13, there is N at the end, and teen is stressed, 13. And then this one, there is no N at the end, and the stress is on the first syllable, 30, 13, 30, 14, 40. Okay, now postcode in Great Britain, you need to be prepared for this because it's 2 letters, 1 number, 2 letters. Because you might expect only numbers, and when you hear NB4 6QR, you might not realize that you need to write letters, and you lose the opportunity because you can only listen once. Okay, so it's important to be prepared. That is, a combination of numbers and letters. Now, dates. So if you need to write the 1st of January, the easiest way is to write the date like this. You just write 1 and January, and this is how you write the 1st of January. Okay, and then if you write it like this, the 1st of January, it will not be a correct answer, just because usually it's no more than 1 word and or a number. And here you have 1, 2, 3, 4 words. You never have this task, write 4 words and or a number, at least. Write no more than 4 words. You never have a task like this. So this will definitely be a wrong answer if you write this in your answer sheets. Okay, so write the date like this, the way you hear it. I mean, so just the 1st of January, you write 1 and January. But as a rule, you don't really need to write both words. You probably will even already have January. You just need to write the date. And it might be something like 13 or 30. All right. So now, common errors that students make, that's not following instructions, then identifying wrong numbers, dates, and names, and so on, and providing redundant information. So in our task, for example, that we did, if you write here, if you there's 10 pounds, if you write the word pounds, or if you copy this number or this sign pounds, that will be redundant information, and your answer will be wrong. Or for example, it's a so for example, initial competition, and in your, or like there is initial and there is gap, and you can hear first competition, and after this you write initial first competition. No, you don't need to write this, because you just need to write competition, because first and initial, they are paraphrases. So sometimes students just add another word which is a paraphrase of a word that was before. And this is another example of redundant information. Okay, so what are some problems with IELTS listening? Now, could you please type in the chat box the problems that you experience with IELTS listening? Or when you prepare, or something that you do not have enough of when you prepare. So what are your problems of preparing for IELTS listening? So from what I know, students say that it is hard to understand what the speakers are saying. There are many different accents. There is not enough time to write down the answers. There can be problems with spelling, and you can listen once only. So these are the problems. Are there any others? So what I would recommend, some tips, is to listen in English as much as possible, including various accents. So you can listen to TED Talks or learnoutloud.com. There you can find lectures on different topics. And you mostly need just, if you remember in part 4, if there is a lecture, you only listen to the introduction to this lecture. So you can listen to introductions to many different lectures on different topics. So the lectures there are divided by topics. So you can listen to lectures about biology, medicine, chemistry, geography, whatever, marketing. So and practice understanding this. So if you want to practice different accents, just try listening to different radio stations. For British pronunciation can be BBC, for Australian pronunciation can be ABC News Radio, Standard American pronunciation, that's CNN, Canadian pronunciation, CBC Radio, New Zealand pronunciation, that's Radio New Zealand, South African, that's SFM or Metro FM. So try to listen to those different radio stations, and you're ready for IELTS. Okay, so that's another recommendation. Now, before your exam, what else can you do? You can listen and practice taking notes. So if you use this website, learnoutloud.com, you can just listen and practice taking notes while you're listening to the lecture. And after this, check your spelling in Microsoft Word or in special programs like Grammarly, and you see where you make spelling mistakes and pay special attention to those words. Okay. Then you can also practice listening by watching TV series, because there you can listen to dialogues. However, in TV series, a picture can help you a lot to understand. And in IELTS, you don't have the picture. So another recommendation is to listen to podcasts. You can watch TV series, but probably not too much. What you need to concentrate on, that's listening to podcasts. Okay, because there you don't have a picture, and it's closer to what you have in IELTS. Then try to learn different ways of saying numbers, dates, and letters. Well, this is what we'll do in our listening course. But if you study on your own, then just be aware that you need to familiarize yourself with this. All right, then do IELTS practice tests. There are Cambridge books, so you can take book, for example, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, whatever, and practice your listening skills. But don't concentrate on these practice tests too much. They are done. These tests are created to test and not to teach. So you can test where you are and you can familiarize yourself with the format. So you take one test, you see that you don't score well enough, then study, develop your language level, learn some vocabulary, practice listening in other places, and then maybe a month later or a week later, depending on when you have to take your exam, take a test again. Don't take tests one after another. They will most likely they will show the same result. Okay, so then listen to difficult texts with tape scripts. But first you listen without the tape script, but at the end you can look at the tape script. So that will be a good recommendation. Then if you're planning to take paper-based IELTS, then use clear handwriting. Work on your handwriting. If your handwriting is not understandable, then make sure you learn to do that. So you really need to, otherwise you might lose marks. Then learn how to deal with all the question types. This is what we do in our IELTS listening course. But if you study on your own, then just you should know that there are various question types, and you need to know how to deal with them, how to deal with each of them. Now, also develop the level of academic endurance. Well, this is what I call academic endurance or mental stamina. What is this? So you're going to take your exam, and you're going to do listening, then reading, and then writing. So 3 hours, one after another. And if you do not prepare under real exam conditions, I'm not saying that you need to prepare, like all your preparation should be under real exam conditions, but sorry. But you sometimes need to try to do this. Because while you're listening, you might notice this, and I hope you will notice this before the exam and you'll work on this, and not at the exam, because it's kind of expensive to retake it over and over again. So when you do the listening test, your attention span might be too short or too narrow, and you might not be able to listen for the entire 30 minutes. Okay, so it means that you will skip some answers unless you train your brain to stay focused for the entire listening test. And then for the reading test and for the writing test. But in reading and writing, it's not so essential. For listening, if you get distracted for, let's say, 20 seconds, you will lose a few questions. You will lose a few answers. So you really need to practice staying focused for the entire 30 minutes and being able to underline keywords, predict, contextualize, anticipate. So doing things, and you need to do things like that. And you need to practice this numerous times before the exam, okay? Under real exam conditions. It's really necessary to be able to take the exam, a 3-hour exam, all 3 parts in a row, and you need to practice this before the exam and see how you can handle it. Okay, so you need to develop the level of your academic endurance. That's what I mean. It's very important to do that before the exam. And don't expect that you couldn't do this during your exam preparation, but then all of a sudden at the exam you will stay focused for all 3 hours. This is not going to happen unless you train yourself to do that. Okay. Now, underline keywords. So what are keywords? Keywords, that's everything in the question except for prepositions, conjunctions, articles, pronouns, and also keywords that are repeated in every question. So if the text is about museums, don't underline the keyword museum because it will be for every question. It won't help you. So all the rest, all nouns, verbs, and adjectives are keywords and you need to listen for paraphrases of these keywords during your listening test. This will help you. And also, there is part 3, and very often it has multiple choice in it. And the options in this multiple choice are very long. It's impossible to read and listen at the same time. So what I really recommend you to do, for example, you do part 1, and after this they say, and now you have 30 seconds to check your answers. As a rule, there is nothing for you to check. You don't need to check your answers. Maybe if there is something you can check within 5 seconds. The rest of these 30 seconds should be spent on looking at part 2 and underlining keywords in this part 2. And after this, they say, okay, now look at part 2, and you have 30 seconds to look at part 2. And you continue looking at part 2, at the second part of part 2, and underline all the keywords. So by the time part 2 starts, you already have all the keywords underlined. And while you're listening, you already know the structure of your listening test. And when you're listening for some information, you can quickly look at the keywords and not read the whole task, the whole texts of questions. And it saves your time significantly. And in part 3, so after part 2, it's the same. And in part 3, it's the most essential thing. So because in part 3, in most cases, you have multiple choice with very long options. So once part 2 is finished, you have 30 seconds to check your answers. But instead of checking your answers, I recommend you, I recommend that you read the next part, part 3, and start underlining keywords in these options. And when they say you have 30 seconds now, you also underline the keywords for in part 3. So by the time part 3 starts, you have a chance of familiarizing yourself with the whole test, with, part 3. Now, when part 4 starts, when part 3 finishes, you also have 30 seconds to check your answers. But then in part 4, between the parts, there is no special time for looking at the questions. So most people, they just cannot read the whole task in part 4 before the listening starts. So your task is to read as much as you can after part 3 and before part 4 starts. And at the end of part 4, just do your best, read and listen at the same time. So the more you underline before you start listening, the easier it's going to be for you. But again, here, most people, they cannot underline all the keywords, even if you start underlining them right after part 3. Okay, so just underline keywords. This is an essential tip. I saw that some people at the exam, after, for example, after part 1 or part 2 in paper-based version, they start transferring their answers to the answer sheet. Don't do that, because at the end you'll have plenty of time to transfer your answers. And now you need to familiarize yourself with the task. Okay, so then contextualize, anticipate, and predict. We discussed this today. So this is a general strategy. Each question type has its own strategy, but these are 3 unique recommendations that can be used everywhere. Now, then check the words before and after the gap. It means that your answer, if it's completion, like note completion, map completion, table completion, whatever, diagram completion, the word that you use to fill in the gap should be logically and grammatically correct. So check the words before and after the gap. If it doesn't fit grammatically or logically, then obviously this is not the correct answer. You won't get any points for it. So try to find a word that is more suitable. Then check your spelling. If you have problems with spelling, try this website, Spelling Bee. There are two links. You can do it on spellingbee.com or on vocabulary.com. So you hear a word, you spell it, and you check the spelling of your word. So you can practice this for maybe 15 minutes a day, and after a month or two, you will notice some improvements in your spelling. Just one of the ways to improve your spelling, that's this website, Spelling Bee. Okay. Now, understand what the questions are. I already mentioned this, but once again, please remember they're multiple choice and computer delivered IELTS. 1, and then it's followed by 2, which is on the right. It's not under number 1. So it's on the right, not below. 1, 2, 3. So it goes like this. Okay. Now, do you have any questions? Let's see. So is it possible to write all answers in caps lock? Yes, it is possible. And then you also don't have to think whether the word should start with a capital letter or not. And yes, official answer by IDP, one of the organizers of IELTS, is that you can use all capital letters, both in paper-based version and computer delivered. Will there be a recording of the webinar? Yes, there will be a recording of the webinar. Now, can I complete the exam booklet while listening? Yes, you actually have to. You're not supposed to listen and then try to remember and write everything at the end. So you need to complete you need to answer the questions while you're listening at the same time. Otherwise, you will forget. So you really need to, as soon as you hear the answer, you write it in the exam booklet if it's paper-based version, or if it's computer delivered IELTS, and then you just write it on the screen. Do questions go in order? In IELTS listening, all questions go in order. In IELTS reading, this is not always the case, but in IELTS listening, all the questions go in order. Can we use American spelling or only British? It doesn't matter. So American spelling is not penalized in the listening in IELTS. So in IELTS reading, well, in IELTS writing, it's the same. You can also use American spelling, and it's perfectly fine. Okay, can I take my favorite gel pen with me? You can take it, but in most exam centers, they give you pencils, and you can only use these pencils, and that's it. So most likely, you will not be allowed to use it during the exam, because you'll be provided with enough stationery. So there will be pencils, there will be erasers, paper, and everything that you need. So can I write the number of the building after the name of the street? No. If it's addressed in IELTS Listening Part 1, in the English system, the number of the building goes before the name of the street. Well, so this would be a mistake. However, in modern IELTS tests, you usually need only one word to complete the gaps with. So you will most likely need to write either the number or the name of the street. Usually you don't write both, but if you do, then you need to write the number before the name of the street. Okay, is spell check function available in the computer delivered IELTS? Of course not. So no, it's not available. Which format is better? So you probably mean computer delivered or paper-based. It depends on how fast you type. So if you type fast, then possibly computer delivered is better. For some students, it's harder to take reading and listening on the screen, but you can get used to it because writing is usually the most challenging part, the most challenging section. And if you type fast, it means you can write more within a limited amount of time. So yes, for many students, that's computer delivered, but it depends. It depends on you, on your personal preferences. Also, if you need your IELTS results urgently, then computer delivered, that's that's the option that that can be that can come in handy, just because you can receive the results within 3 days or so. Now, Okay, is IELTS different from TOEFL? Well, yes, there is a difference in format. So as far as I know, modern TOEFL is only computer based, and it also has a lot of multiple choice questions, whereas in IELTS there are more question types. Then IELTS is more widely recognized now. Even in the US, IELTS is more widely recognized than TOEFL. So it's just the most popular exam in the world. So what language level do you need to pass IELTS? As a rule, this is intermediate plus, I would say. So if you want band 5, 5.5, then you need intermediate level. If it's 6, 6.5, then upper intermediate. If it's 7, 7.5, then it should be advanced. Okay. Now, if they take away my watch, how can I know how much time is left? It's projected on the wall, or if it's computer delivered IELTS, you can see it on the screen, so how much time is left. What kind of graphs are there in academic writing task 1? Well, our webinar today is about listening, but okay, it can be line graph, bar chart, pie chart, table, map, or process or diagram. So these are the possible graphs. So are there many people taking IELTS at the same time? It depends. It depends on your exam center. So sometimes yes, sometimes no. Also depends on the pandemic and things like that. So sometimes there are a lot of people, sometimes not so many. If it's computer delivered IELTS, then there are just a few people usually. What level do I need to score a 6.5 in IELTS? That's strong upper intermediate level. 6.5 is the borderline between upper intermediate and advanced. And to score a 6.5 in writing, you most likely need advanced level of English. Okay. Are IELTS examiners Russian or native speakers? Okay, if you take your exam in Russia, okay, it can be, they can be native speakers, they can be Russian. Requirements for an IELTS examiner is that you need to have 3 years of teaching experience, teaching English, a university degree, an internationally recognized English teaching qualification. And if you're a non-native English speaker, you also need well, band 9 in speaking and at least band 8 in all other aspects. Now, is there a break between reading and writing? Well, there is a very short break when they take your tests. They collect your reading tests and they hand out your writing test. There is just a minute or two. There is no special break, but you can just breathe for a minute or two. Okay. Which part influences the overall score the most? All the parts are equal, so it's all the same. What topics are most common in IELTS? So I wouldn't say that there are any topics that are more common. As for listening, reading, and writing, there can be numerous topics like education. There can be biology, medicine, chemistry, environment, whatever. As for speaking, these topics change every 4 seasons. Every 4 months. So every season is 4 months. So they change 3 times a year. It's closed information, but it's possible to receive IELTS speaking topics for the current season. Now, should I write a rough copy first and then write a clear copy? I think you're talking about writing. No, you usually don't have time for this. You just write a clean copy immediately, both in computer delivered and in paper-based version. What is the interface of computer delivered IELTS? So on the website of British Council, you can have a look. So where was this? Yes, so it looks like this. So here's a screenshot of what the test is like. So you can use you can just find a sample computer delivered IELTS practice test. It's not a complete test with 40 questions. It's shorter, but you can see what the interface is like. Just use the British Council website. What's the difference between reading academic and reading general? We'll talk about this tomorrow. The general difference is that in general reading, the texts are easier, and in one part, in one section, there can be several short texts rather than one big text like in academic. But in order to score 7 or 8, you need more correct answers. So you're penalized more for mistakes in general reading than in academic reading, because the questions are easier. Now, can we use the toilet during the exam? In the listening, during the listening part, you cannot. After the listening part is finished, you can, but you're losing your time. So it's better. Well, it's better not to drink too much before the exam. Some people drink too much coffee, and then during the writing section, they have to use the toilet, to use the bathroom, and it's not very nice because no extra time is added. But you can. Also, in the last 10 minutes of every section, you cannot leave the exam room. Now, how can I find the exam center? You can find the nearest exam center, the exam center that is nearest to you, at IELTS.org website. So how long does it take to prepare for the exam? It depends on your current level and your target band score. So if you're intermediate and you want 7.5, it can take you a couple of years. Now, what's the maximum possible score in IELTS? It's band 9. Can I look at the next section during the listening test? Within the listening test, yes, you can look at the next section, both in computer delivered IELTS and in paper-based version. But if you finish listening early and you still have a few minutes to transfer your answers, at this time you cannot look at the reading section. Okay, but within listening section, within reading section, within writing section, you can do them in any order. Well, in listening, you just follow the script, of course, but you can look at the next section before it started. Okay, good. Now there are some websites for listening practice here that I can recommend. So there's like Discovery, National Geographic, British Council podcast, and some others. Then there are some YouTube bloggers. You can also use them for practicing your listening comprehension skills. Okay. Then TED Talks. You can use this. You can also combine TED Talks and your essay writing. For example, you have an essay topic. When you practice for your IELTS, you can just find a TED Talk video, watch it, write down some ideas and some vocabulary collocations from this listening, and use them in your essay. So you'll practice both listening and writing at the same time. You can do the same with newspaper articles. Just take a good newspaper, like the New York Times, I don't know, the Wall Street Journal, something like this, the Times. Find an article on a topic that is close to your essay topic. Read the article, copy some ideas. I mean, just write down some ideas, write down some collocations, advanced vocabulary, like topic-related vocabulary, and use it in your essay. Okay. Then npr.org, that's a website where you have some news articles and also an audio version of those articles, and they're not identical. So it's just a paraphrase of the article. So you can also practice your listening skills on this website. Okay. Now, I also run in an IELTS listening course regularly. It's one of the modules of the full IELTS course, the preparation course that I teach. And if you want, you can take the listening module separately. So the next listening group starts next Monday, and we'll be studying from Monday to Thursday at 8:15 p.m. Moscow time. So the class is around 60 minutes, but sometimes be prepared for 90 minutes. So it's approximately 60 minutes, but there are 20 classes and the level of difficulty increases throughout the course. So the first lessons, they may be quite short, like maybe even shorter than 60 minutes. But by the end of the course, the lessons are usually longer because the level of difficulty increases. Okay. Then during this listening course, we practice all the necessary sub skills that you need to successfully pass the IELTS exam. So how to identify speakers in a conversation, how to identify the main subject of conversations, listen for specific information, listening for specific information, classifying it in a table, following a conversation, understanding a description of a place, following directions, understanding people talking about a topic related to work or study, listening to understand the context, identifying functions that speakers use, and some other listening sub skills. So don't expect that if you didn't practice those sub skills, then all of a sudden at an exam you will be able to successfully do all the tasks. This might be the case, but most likely not, especially if your level is not very, very high. Okay, so then we also practice some exam skills that are needed specifically for IELTS. So how to spell names correctly, how to identify keywords and tasks, how to recognize synonyms and paraphrase. Basically, we do this every lesson. Then identifying and eliminating distractors, predicting what information is missing. So today I just explained this strategy to you, but during the course, we also practice this several times. Now, labeling a map, completing notes in a task, identifying information needed to complete notes to sentences, then using heading in the notes to guide you through what the speaker is saying, using the speaker's signposting words to help you follow notes, recognizing the language of comparison and contrast to predict ideas in a task, matching descriptions with people, places, or things, matching questions and options, identifying the attitudes and opinions of speakers through expressions and intonation, and identifying key information in summaries and tables to guide your listening. We practice everything. We practice all types of IELTS listening questions at least 3 times during the course, because once is not always enough. So if you are interested, welcome to the course. There is listening, but there are also reading, writing, and speaking modules as well. Now, your home assignment for the next, until the next webinar, is to answer 2 questions in writing. So what are your main takeaways, and what are the main difficulties that you have with IELTS reading? So what are your main takeaways from today's webinar? So what did you learn? What is the most useful thing about IELTS listening that you learned from today's webinar? And before the next webinar, what are the main difficulties that you have with IELTS reading? Okay, so that's the homework. And thank you all for participation. Hope to see you in the next webinar.